Nope, it doesn't do 3, 2, 1. Hey, we're those guys again. This podcast thing we call the Leftist Lens. I'm James.
And I'm Matt. We took last week off because I was out of town enjoying some southern sunshine.
We need a week off every now and then.
Except I don't know if this ever happens to you. I was on vacation for almost 10 days. I was on Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. I did nothing but lay around, go in the pool. It's not like I was hiking around Disney World or something. I was just relaxing the entire time. And now I'm home and I'm exhausted. I don't know how that works.
That's living the American dream, going on vacation to unwind, and you come back more exhausted than the day you left. It's just
I'm really glad I came back on a weekend so I can recover before having to go to work.
Yeah.
On Monday. But anyway,
I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're back, and we've got stuff to talk about this week, apparently.
We do. We got the Democratic National Convention, first of all, starting Monday. If you're listening to this, it probably already started. The Democratic Party is going to nominate Vice President Kamala Harris to be their nominee for president. We already know that. That's a foregone conclusion. She's been going around speaking. She was actually supposed to be here in Erie today. But we have our annual Celebrate Erie festival going on this weekend, and there weren't enough law enforcement available to provide security for both events, so she canceled. So I don't know where she is today, but I know her vice president was in Wisconsin or something this morning. But anyway, so she's been going around speaking, and she gave a speech. I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember where it was. It was a couple weeks ago now, where protesters, anti-genocide protesters, had something to say. I didn't hear what they said, but they showed up and were chanting something, and they had signs. And her response to them was, if you want Trump to win, keep saying that. Otherwise, I'm talking here.
Oh, it's the same old shit. It's the same old shit.
Essentially, sit down and shut up. It's very Hillary-esque, and that's how Hillary lost the election, because she didn't want to listen to people.
I think that was one of the reasons Hillary lost the election. I think it was a big reason. And the other thing that strikes me about where this has gone since she became the heir apparent to the Democratic nomination is I haven't heard a single original idea come from her yet. And I don't know if one campaign isn't like infiltrating the other to find out what it is that their talking points are going to be when the next week rolls around, or what's going on, because it feels very much to me like she is waiting for whatever the Republican Party is stating as talking points or policy positions, and then just one-upping them on the same ideas. And it's a little disappointing, to say the least, but it's not terribly unexpected. But I'd always said, during the time that she's been vice president, and before that during the campaign, she was moderately embarrassing. And she would go somewhere between being moderately embarrassing and just being non-existent, because for the most part during her stint as vice president, I don't think we heard 2 words from her. But she's not proving, I haven't seen anything where she's proving herself to be innovative or on a different tangent than what the Democratic Party was under Biden. And I had always, when she inherited this nomination, which is what she did, that her platform is going to be, I'm going to continue the Biden legacy. And I haven't seen anything different than that yet.
Yeah, she hasn't really distinguished herself. And I don't know. I mean, Biden did good things domestically. You and I both have huge issues with his foreign policy.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to feel the same way about Kamala. There's no doubt about it. And that's what those protesters were about. But she did show at least that she's going to pretend to listen to that fairly sizable portion of her base that she's alienating by continuing the policy of supporting Israel without question.
Well, there is that, but there was some difference between the episode in whatever the stop she made where she rebuked these protesters and said, you know, if you want Trump to win, then just keep doing what you're doing, and so on and so forth. Then there was some event days after that where she gave lip service to the idea that a ceasefire is what she's always been looking for. And
and her and Biden are tirelessly working towards one.
Tirelessly, yes.
Yeah, which I call bullshit, because if you want a ceasefire, stop providing the weapons that are allowing Israel to commit the genocide.
That would be a huge step. It doesn't seem to be that complicated. I don't know what is going on where there's a gun being held to our head, figuratively, where this obligation to provide ammunition to Israel is just an unnegotiable point. That
the gun is the AIPAC money. And in fact, I forgot to put this on the outline, but there were some primary elections that AIPAC heavily influenced. I don't know if we already talked about Jamal Brown in New York. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't, but he was defeated by an AIPAC supported candidate. Cori Bush was defeated by an AIPAC supported candidate, and Rashida Tlaib also defeated by an AIPAC supported candidate. However, Ilhan Omar, she survived.
Yeah, I did see that.
But I don't know did you see Cori Bush's speech when she lost her primary?
No, I did not.
She said she's more radicalized now, and it is now her mission to tear down AIPAC's kingdom. You should watch it. It's good. Fired me up.
Good luck with that. I wish.
I don't know how she's going to do that, but you know.
Well, at this point, I think she's doomed to become a lobbyist or become something other than what she's been, and with significantly less power, perhaps. And of course, she's going to stand up against AIPAC even more fervently now that she's apparently out of politics.
I don't know, man. I don't underestimate what a black woman can do. Look at what Stacey Abrams did in Georgia. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
She did things that no one else could do.
That's true.
She turned that state blue.
Yep. That's
crazy. So I think Cori Bush, if anyone can do it, it's going to be Cori Bush, and I look forward to seeing what she does.
Ditto. But
yeah, they don't want a ceasefire. And in fact, if you want more evidence of how the Democrats just want to pretend like the large portion of their base that is anti-genocide exists, they want to pretend that we don't exist. And I say we because you and I are on that side, but the Gen Z voters are almost unanimously on that side, and there's a lot of them. I think there's more of them than the parties realize, and they are very much anti-genocide. And the Democrats want to pretend they don't exist. Evidence of this, you remember during the primary season where people were voting uncommitted? I actually did that in Pennsylvania, voted uncommitted in the Democratic primary, even though by the time I got around to voting, there was no one to vote for but Biden. Well, there are 30 delegates that are going to the Democratic convention next week that are representing that. They are delegates committed to uncommitted. So there's around 4,000 delegates, so it's a very tiny minority. But there is somebody there. But what I found interesting is they had wanted a ICU doctor, a pediatric ICU physician, to have a spot to speak at the convention about what they saw in Gaza when they were working there as a physician. And the Democratic Party said, no, we don't want to hear about that. So I don't know. They're ignoring this sizable group at their own risk.
applaud them for standing their ground on this, but they're not going to make any difference in the nomination process. So we know that Harris is going to be the nominee for the Democrats. We know this already.
True.
But and I made my prediction while I was muted. So the prediction,
I didn't hear that.
I'm going to reiterate my prediction. Harris is going to win the election, but Harris is not going to win by any sort of margin that is going to prevent the Republicans from unleashing their barrage of lawsuits and challenges on state levels and at the Supreme Court. It's going to be a clusterfuck that makes 2019, 2020 look like a landslide. But Harris is ultimately going to win. But what leverage is there once she wins the presidency? Because there's going to be all kinds of distractions and shit talking about, oh my God, here we are. We finally got, our first woman president and woman of color. And those are all valid points that are going to be absolutely overshadowed by the fact that the Republicans are going to drag this into the dirt to no end whatsoever. But she's going to be president. I don't have any doubts about that today. She could screw something up terribly, awfully bad between now and the election that could change that. But I don't see that happening. I think she's going to win. But what leverage is there to see that she does something different on anything? Because I had said when she became the heir apparent that her platform is going to be, I'm going to continue the legacy of Joe Biden and his policies. And that includes domestic policies as well as foreign policy. But there's no leverage aside from, you better not fuck this up or we're not going to reelect you. That's going to compel her to do anything different with Israel, to disavow AIPAC, to remove us from that dynamic and rein Israel in terms of their colonialism.
No, nobody's gonna separate us from AIPAC unless we can convince enough Congress people to remove the money, the unlimited money that organizations can give to PACs and super PACs. Until we convince them to do that, that's not going to change. So I don't know. Yeah, that's the thing. It's not as important who the president is. We need more progressive, further left people in Congress. Mm-hmm. That's what we need.
Yes, we do. And I think between now and next week, I think we should dig in and find out what the possibilities are in terms of other candidates for these seats in Congress that, may fit the bill for being further left and what their chances are and who they are. I know some people are doing this in terms of breaking down these races. But I would like to touch on that in the coming weeks to see what real possibilities there are, because the whole world listens to us, right?
Yeah.
That podcast is reaching people far and wide, and
I don't remember exactly what it was, but we said something a few weeks ago, and then I think it was Biden that came out and said exactly what we had said.
Of course he did.
I mean, that did happen. It was a few weeks ago. I don't remember exactly what that was, but
oh my God, if only. If only. Yeah, so I don't know. Harris has an opportunity to be the most revolutionary candidate, because and I don't know if this was part of where I was muted, but talking about how once she wins and the dust settles, there's going to be all sorts of attention on the fact that finally we have a woman president and a person of color as a woman president, and all the things that are valid points that are worth noting. But it's going to distract tremendously from what's in front of us right now. And on the domestic side, issues of the economy that, by the way, Biden just recently signed his, whatever this legislation was for the Inflation Control Act or Inflation Reduction Act, whatever that is, which I'm sure it really amounts to nothing. And there, I don't know that what Harris is really going to do differently. She's going to be stuck, I think.
Yeah, well, since she'll be a first-term president, she's going to have to cater to the center to get her second term. Normally, it's in your second term where you see the more progressive things.
Mm.
So I don't know. I don't know what I expect from her. And even though I say in the outline, I'm not Trump is not a reason for us to vote for you, I will be glad that she's not Trump when she's in office.
Well, right. And so let's keep our fingers crossed for that, at least, that this election could be the end of this malignant sickness known as MAGA. I think if there is a defeat of Donald Trump and Trump betrothed candidates for congressional seats and other things, that would be the beginning of the end of this. But if that's the case, if this is the death blow to the MAGA movement, which please let it be that, what then is there for the Democratic Party to fight against? Because this, frankly, this has been, I said this when Trump got elected, that Trump getting elected was the biggest gift to the Democrats that there ever could be, because now their entire platform and their position is going to be, hey, we're not him, so vote for us. And that's all they needed to say. And the Republicans made it so easy for that to be the platform, because everything about the Republican platform, through Project 2025, through Trump's poisoning of the Supreme Court even further than it was poisoned, made it easy for the Democrats to say, oh my God, at least we can do whatever we want, but at least we're not him. And fucking Biden said it verbatim in a speech. I don't remember how long ago this was. It was only a year or so ago, where he says, I don't care if you think I'm Satan incarnate. I'm not him.
Yeah.
So once that's removed, let's pontificate about the idea that MAGA dies on the vine in the middle of November. What then is there for the Democrats to run against?
Well, here's the thing. We need MAGA to die, because Democrats right now are so far right, they're practically Republicans, and they're just using the at least we're not fascists.
Yeah.
But if the fascists are gone,
while
and
they act like
against,
fascists, though.
if they do, you're right. But if they're running against more moderate Republicans, they'll have to move left, I would think. And here's the thing: progressive ideas are popular. They're popular nationwide. Even Republicans like them.
Yeah.
If you ask the question properly, they like things like universal health care. When they understand it, if you ask the ones that understand what it is, they like it. They like free education. They like progressive things.
Well, yeah,
they like their Social Security and Medicare too.
They showed their hand on that with the Build Back Better bill that became law, and all the components of that, because it provided money to the states for infrastructure. And those Republican states, they gladly held their hand out for that money, because
I know.
Yeah,
I mean, the voters themselves like this stuff. So what the Democrats need is they need Pete Buttigieg style messaging about all the progressive things that they don't really do, but they talk about sometimes.
Yeah.
And they need to explain that to all the voters, the independent voters in particular, but also moderate Republicans. They'll eat that shit up. You can, if you message it properly, you can get moderate Republicans to vote for Democrats if the Democrats espouse what are already known to be popular progressive ideas, like free healthcare, free education, abortion rights, things like that. So that's what they should be doing. But instead, they're just doing, we're not fascists. But they say they're not.
Right. And the Republican Party has gotten so entrenched in their demagoguery and their boogeymen of these imaginary things of women wanting control of their own bodies and how horrible that is, and immigrants who are central to the economy for so many reasons, that they're the that they are somehow the problem with everything that's in America, and people, trans people and all the other boogeymen that the Republican Party has chosen to parade around, they're going to have to disavow themselves from that, because there's no basis in reality for anything that the Republicans have put out. Because and I see this shit all the time now, where they're saying, "Oh, it's Trump or communism." What the fuck are you talking about? There's nothing communist about the Democratic Party. There's nothing, and they're calling Harris a communist and a socialist. There's nothing about her that
no, there isn't. If only there were, right?
Right. I'd be supporting her. I'd be flying flags with her fucking face on it if she was a true communist or socialist. There'd be no question about it. And so these boogeymen that come from the 1940s and 50s that the Republicans have dredged up with these words that their base doesn't understand what the fuck these words mean. They have no understanding. They have relied on their base remaining as stupid as they are for so long, and there's that mechanism needs to be broken completely. And I think if we can get past this MAGA movement, which things have gotten just exponentially dumber over the past 8 years, if this can die in November, that's a good thing. But it's going to force the Democrats and the Republicans, frankly, to start talking about real policies, not of isolationism. And by the way, that's the Republican platform, and it has been since I don't know how long it's been like this, but the idea of isolationism for the United States has been central to the Republican talking points for a long time. That's going to have to go away. That has to go away along with MAGA, because if we're going to, this idea of energy independence and inflation being something unique that is only an American thing, that isn't affected by global economic policies and things like that. There's a lot of education that needs to happen once MAGA goes away, and hopefully that's where we can begin moving to. But it's definitely going to force the Democrats into crafting real policy, and yes, they're going to have to get moderate Republicans on board, like in the old days when it wasn't a 50-50 split, and no Republican today talks to any Democrat and tries to get anything done. All that shit needs to start changing very quickly, because once Harris, and this is going to be the other thing too, is watching not just Harris get elected, but what happens to the balance in Congress in terms of who are the new occupants, and what.
And will Kamala Harris have both houses? That could be important.
Yeah, and because that's the other thing.
Most people think that the Republicans are going to take the Senate. I don't really see why. Maybe that's something else we should dig into.
I haven't heard that, but it wouldn't surprise me.
That's most of what I've read. A third of the seats are up. We have to. Before next week, I'll have a look at what seats are up and what the races are like in those states. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, you're right. Kamala's going to win, and I don't think it'll be sizable either.
No, I think here's my official prediction. I think by 11 p.m. on the night of the election, she's going to surpass 270. But immediately at 11:01 p.m., the lawsuits are going to be filed.
Yeah,
there's going to be so much obfuscation and dirty shit that's going to go on from the Republicans on every level that it's going to take center stage. And the whole, and this is gonna create this whole thing where, oh my God, we've got a woman president, a woman of color president, and we can't even celebrate that because the Republicans are going to drag this into the dirt. That's how it's going to go. It'll be fun to watch, but it's not going to be anything. It's going to make 2019, 2020 look like a fucking landslide. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's by design.
All right, James. In other news, our favorite gay drag queen Republican, George Santos. Haven't thought about him in a while, but you may recall he was kicked out of Congress when he was charged with committing fraud with his campaign monies. I don't remember all the details of it, but it was like he made a whole fake company that was collecting money and
Mm-hmm.
fake credit cards, fraudulent credit cards and stuff. I don't know. There was all kinds of stuff. We weren't doing our podcast at that time, so I don't think we did a dive into that. But anyway, he was charged.
And it now looks like he's going to plead guilty to most of those charges.
Yeah, I couldn't really find details on it. Like, I don't know if they made him a deal where they're dropping some of the charges if he pleads guilty to some others.
No.
I've got details on that.
I've got it in front of me, and what it is if he pleads guilty to these things, there's no trial. He doesn't have to stand trial. He doesn't have to testify. People aren't, and there's no trial that's going to happen because he has pled guilty to the charges that the prosecutor wants him to plead
Right.
guilty.
So he's pleading guilty to all the charges.
Well, no, he's not, because Santos also pled not guilty to 10 additional charges. Those charges accused him of stealing the identities of family members and using donors' credit cards to spend thousands of dollars. Those, as far as I see it now, those are the 10 that he's pleading not guilty to. But the plea agreement means Santos does not have to stand trial in federal court in Long Island next month for the 23 counts, including wire fraud, money laundering, and theft of public funds. So there won't be a trial. Is he still serving, or did he step down?
No, he got kicked out.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Now I remember.
The Republicans kicked him out, and then he was running. He initially was running in 2024, but that was short-lived. I don't even know if he ever officially filed to run, but he announced he was going to run.
Yeah.
But then didn't.
Well, that'll
be interesting to watch. That's happening Monday. He's pleading guilty, so that probably also has already happened if you're listening to this.
I think he's got a podcast. I think that's what he moved on to, was a podcast.
All right, let's not plug George Santos's podcast.
Amen. Oh my God. Let's see, where are we on the outline here?
Quattro.
Ukraine invaded Russia. Yes, I have been watching this very closely, and I get to watch it very closely from I think a very unique place where I sit. This is heavy shit, and I think what this has done, because Ukraine is occupying thousands of miles within Russia, and this, on like the article that I sent you earlier this afternoon. This was an intelligence victory for Ukraine, because apparently not even the United States knew, and this had been in the planning stages for months.
Yeah, it would have to be.
Yeah. And the United States didn't even know about it. And that Ukraine was able to pull this off and still hold that territory does not bode well for Putin.
No, I mean, Russia pulled troops back from Ukraine to try to retake some of those towns in Russia and failed.
And called up conscripts, which was contrary to a position that Putin had stated, where he wasn't going to call any more conscripts up. They've had to call conscripts up to try to retake this land, which they have not been able to do. And Ukraine continues to increase the territory that they're occupying in Russia. The latest thing that I saw was that there was a crucial bridge in Kursk that Ukraine blew up, and the footage of it is pretty fucking spectacular. I think they used HIMARS to take out this bridge, which would have prevented Russia from moving in and retaking this area. But I think the bottom line is that this scares the hell out of Putin. One, because this has never happened before. There's no, since World War II, I don't know that there's been any occupation of Russian territory by any other country.
No, it's famously impossible to invade Russia.
Yeah. I think what this does is this sets the stage for a coup. If Putin can't resolve this. And I've seen Putin's press conferences. He's done so many since this happened, and they're very exciting to watch, because he asks the question in some of these press conferences, what is the end game here? Ukraine occupying Russian territory, what is the end game? Maybe to get you the fuck out of Ukraine, for starters.
I mean, if Putin were to sit down and say, look, get out of Russia and we'll get out of Ukraine, I think Zelensky would accept that and we'd be done with this.
Yeah. And I think that's why this was a brilliant strategic move by the generals on Zelensky's side that pulled this off, because that is their ace in the hole. But I've seen Putin's press conferences where he's still talking about, yes, you need to leave Russian territory, and you need to disavow NATO, and you need to leave us entrenched in the areas in Ukraine that we've already taken, because those are now part of Russia and all this. So Putin at this point hasn't modified his negotiating points 1 inch. But I think the longer Ukraine holds that territory, and depending on how far they move, it's going to be interesting to see if they just stop where they are, or if they continue.
Well, I mean, if they eventually cut off Russian supply lines into Ukraine, it'll be light work to get Russia out of Ukraine.
I hope so, because I think that at that point, the generals in Russia are going to look at what's, the way that this war has changed by this invasion of Russian territory. And if Putin doesn't concede and get the hell out of Ukraine in exchange for Ukraine getting out of Russia, I think you're going to see some internal changes in Russia that could be the end of Putin. That would be the best case scenario for this, by the way. I don't trust for a second that if Putin has an epiphany that says, oh fuck, this has now gone too far, okay, we're out of Ukraine, Ukraine gets out of Russia, and that's the end of this. Putin's still in power, and Putin cannot be trusted. And at that point, Ukraine's gonna, I would say, probably in the next 5 years, Ukraine's going to be a full NATO member. And I think, Putin is looking at the end of his political career, and it's going to be up to him how this ends. He's either going to be overthrown in a coup, he's going to be killed in a war, or he's just going to lose in an election. So I don't know. This is really interesting to watch. I didn't see Ukraine doing this, because I know for the longest time the United States put a condition on arms supplies reaching Ukraine, that Ukraine could not strike within Russian territory. That started to change probably 6 or 7 months ago. And as the weapons packages that we've been delivering have gotten bigger and stronger. And by the way, these weapons packages that we're delivering are not cutting edge U.S. weapons.
No, they're not like the stuff we give to Israel to fight against civilians.
Yeah, no shit, right? That this stuff is inventory that's been, basically expiring on the shelf, that, here you go, you can have it. If it works, good luck. If it doesn't, so sorry. Fortunately, it works. And, again, NATO really wants to see this resolved. But yeah, it's definitely taken a turn, and I'm happy to see the turn that it's taken. I'm going to be watching this really close for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's tactically brilliant what they've done.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how quickly this brings the war to an end, which is what I'm pretty sure Zelensky's goal is with this move.
Oh, absolutely. No question. Zelensky doesn't want to occupy Russian territory. He doesn't. No. He wants Ukraine's borders to go back to what they were, and he wants Russia out of Ukraine. It's really that simple.
All right. Well, that's it for the heavy news. Now let's make fun of American corporations again.
Okay.
It's been a few weeks since we talked about them, but we did mention a few weeks ago some astronauts that took a Boeing spacecraft up to the ISS were stuck there because they don't believe that spacecraft is safe to return to Earth in, and they're still there.
How long is it?
That was an 8-day mission, man, and they've been there for almost 70 days now.
Wow. It's amazing to me, because Well, first of all, they said that they've been running tests on, I guess it was the thrusters on that spacecraft that were not working correctly, and they're critical for getting it at the proper trajectory to get back through the atmosphere and so forth. But the fact that SpaceX launches fucking Falcon rockets fucking weekly, it seems like, and the SpaceX crew capsule is tried and tested, method for getting people back and forth. I would love to understand why we haven't just moved that Boeing capsule out of the way, brought up a Dragon capsule, and stuck to some schedule with this mission.
Well, I think it is true that it's not. They don't consider it an emergency that they need to bring them home right away. There's 7 other crew members on the ISS that are there always, and they're there for years at a time.
And them being there is not interfering with resupply missions, because they have more people there than they would if those people had come home. But the resupply missions definitely need to stay on schedule. I'm sure they can adjust rations and so forth to make things last longer. But yeah, it's definitely not an emergency. And they know they're going to be home at some point, one way or another. So
yeah. Well, the current plan, there is a SpaceX crewed mission scheduled for the end of September, and they're planning on bringing home the stuck astronauts. They were also considering flying the Boeing spacecraft home with nobody on it, just to see if it can survive the reentry, I guess. I don't know. It's interesting.
I would think people would rather see them do that than put any of those astronauts back on that thing. I can't imagine at this point feeling confident getting back on that thing and coming home. At this point, taking a Soyuz spacecraft home and landing in the fucking Kazakhstan desert would probably feel like a safer option.
Yeah. So does this ruin Boeing's chances of being a long-term partner with NASA?
I would hope so. Boeing's got enough fucking
I would hope so
problems.
too, but for some reason I doubt it.
But wasn't Boeing the whistleblower thing where they killed some guy?
Well, maybe. I don't know.
They did.
I mean, they had a guy die.
They had a guy die. Okay, that's what we're calling it.
Well, I don't know. The official thing is that he shot himself.
Yeah.
So that's the official thing.
Don't be a whistleblower for Boeing.
I don't know. But there was actually 2 whistleblowers that died. One of them committed suicide in a parked car right after testifying, but before testifying more. And another one got MRSA and died. And people are saying, well, that's suspicious, but it's not. People get MRSA. It happens.
Yeah.
And people shoot themselves in cars. And I mean, yes, I get it. You want to believe in a conspiracy theory. There's reasons to believe that Boeing would be willing to do that. American corporations have committed killings before. Mm-hmm. Look at the United Fruit Company if you want to know about it.
The United wait, slow down. The United Fruit Company.
Yeah, Chiquita Bananas, man. They did a whole war in South America.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that's true.
So that's a thing. But I can also say that guy worked at Boeing for 40 years or something like that, and he's testifying against his employer. Lots of people hate him all of a sudden that he probably worked with forever. That's a lot of stress. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, it's true. I mean, this is going way off on a tangent, but you remember the guy who was accused? There was a couple situations. One, the guy who was a scientist who was accused of doing the anthrax mailings.
Oh yeah.
And he wound up killing himself.
Yes, he did.
Richard Jewell, who was the Olympic Park, did he die of natural causes, or did he take his own life?
No, he died of natural causes, but his life was ruined.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So that's the thing about, if you're going to be, and in this case, we're talking about a whistleblower for a major government contractor, that could cause that company to lose their government contracts, which are worth billions. the stress that would be on you with
Yeah.
what you know and what you're divulging. I
I'm just
couldn't.
saying, I can see him under that stress taking his own life.
I
It
agree.
doesn't have to be that Boeing did it, but it could have been Boeing, I guess.
Well, but Boeing contributed to it. I mean,
Well,
even
for
if they
sure.
didn't pull the trigger,
That I agree with.
yeah, even if they didn't pull the trigger, they would have been making his life miserable and would make his life miserable if they lost, money because of the facts that he divulged. So yeah, it's a whole toxic soup. It's disgusting. But yeah, hopefully those astronauts get home safe one way or another sooner rather than later. And yeah, the whole space station thing is nearing the end of its predicted life.
Do you have any feelings about that? Because
I remember
we watched them build that over decades.
Yeah,
I have some
over it.
feelings about it. I'm sad that the ISS is getting decommissioned.
Dude, I'm old enough to remember Space Lab falling back to Earth.
I don't remember Space Lab, but I do remember Mir.
Oh, the Russian space station.
The Russian one, yeah.
That thing needed to come down. That thing was a disaster. That thing was awful.
I do remember that, and that's what caused us to build ISS. It was a response to Mir.
Yeah, it was. I remember. Yeah, Ronald Reagan's. That was the whole purpose of building and running the space shuttle fleet for so many years was to build the space station.
Correct.
And I can tell you that I am excited for what is going to replace it. I've seen some of the models that are being tested, that even some of the modules for those models have been brought up to the ISS and tested up there. One of those is the inflatable modules that look like they're going to be the next best space station option. So there's
I didn't even know we were building a space station. I thought we were just doing the moon.
Well, we are, but the space station is key to getting to the moon anyway. It's going to be part and parcel with the whole process. But there's several companies, and some of this is going to be done by NASA. Some of it's going to be done by private companies. None of them SpaceX, thankfully. Where these different designs for what the next generation for space stations looks like. It's going to be these inflatable connectable modules that go up and can be inhabited for extended periods of time, because it genuinely looks like much better stuff is going to be available and will not be as risky as the stuff that we've had up there. It's time for this change.
Yeah, I mean the ISS is old. I do get that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like space exploration. I am sad that the budgets were cut for so long. Clinton actually cut the budgets quite a bit.
Yeah, I remember that.
If you remember, and set us back. But I like it. I think it's cool stuff. And if you want to complain about how much it costs, compare NASA's budget to that of the Department of Defense, and then come complain to me.
Yep. True. I agree with you. That's our outline for the week.
Yeah. Any odds and ends?
I had something. I can't remember what it was. Oh, I'm just going to throw this in. When we used to do this as a video podcast, the software that we used most often was this software package called which is a really weird name.
Yep.
But the CEO of the company wants to interview me on Monday about how we used it and how it was beneficial to us getting the podcast off the ground. Because at the time where we started this, I'm only going to speak for myself. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Not in terms
we did have a hard time finding something that was A, free.
Yeah.
And B, would allow us to talk to each other through video.
Yes.
We had a hard time, and record. We had a hard time finding something that would do that, and did it.
Yeah, it did it fairly seamlessly, and it gave us, extended options for what we could do in terms of how that video looked and so forth. Circumstances have changed primarily in the fact that where we're recording this from, where I sit, I can't do video. So this is why we're now switching to the Google Meet thing, which I think is good.
Yeah, it's fine.
But we wouldn't have gotten to this point without that company, and they're going to interview me on Monday, and I'll
That is cool. I have seen ads for on YouTube.
Really?
Yes, I have.
Hmm.
They only advertise themselves as someone for like corporate people to do presentations with. So we definitely used it outside of their
Outside of their bubble. Yeah.
yeah, outside of their bubbles. That's probably why they want to talk to us. They're like, hey, this is a untapped market.
And I assume that because the logo shows up in the videos that we put up on YouTube and such. So that, that gets captured by some algorithm and they're aware of who we are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll put plugs in for us, and then I'll make a video of it.
I wonder if they've actually listened to us.
Oh God, that would be unfortunate. That's
We are not corporate friendly normally.
no, we're barely human sometimes, but they still reached out. So we'll take that for what it is.
Kudos to them.
Yes. So I'll let you know how that goes Monday night after it's all done and gone. All right. So
James. Yeah. So if you listen this far, like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. Leave us a review if you're on one of the other podcast apps. Tell your friends.
Yes. Bring them into the fold and get them engaging with us also. All righty, man. I will keep an eye out for things in the coming week. You do the same, and we'll keep bantering, and then we'll come back again.
Yeah,
next week
we'll have convention stuff to talk about next week, no doubt.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it starts tomorrow, right?
Yes. Yeah, or Monday.
Oh, tomorrow's Sunday. Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah, Monday.
Yep.
Okay, definitely on the agenda. All right, man. I'll see you next week.
All right. See you next week.
Adios.